This is Missy.
And this is Elizabeth, and welcome to You Should Meet My Friend. Today we're privileged to chat with Phyllis Wilson, who served 37 years in the Army as a military intelligence voice intercept operator. She has served around the globe, visiting more than 35 countries in Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, and North America. She's been mobilized numerous times to shoulder the duties of defense of the nation and has deployed to Iraq several times as an intelligence analyst with special operations. She is a registered nurse and holds 2 master's degrees, 2 Bachelor of Science degrees, and a certificate in nonprofit management from Duke University. She is currently president of the Women in Military Service for America Memorial Foundation, the only major national memorial honoring the 3 million women who have defended America from the Revolutionary War to today. She has 8 children. 4 of her sons are in the military and all are combat veterans. She has 15 grandchildren, although maybe more by now. One more. So you have 16 grandchildren. So welcome to our podcast, Phyllis, and thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, of course. Man, it makes it sound like I'm a busy person, doesn't it?
I think you are. But let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up and what led to your decision to join the Army?
Yeah, that's a good one. I was born in Ohio, just outside of Akron, near where the Football Hall of Fame and stuff is. My dad was born in Ohio. My 2 younger brothers were born in Ohio, but my mom and my 2 older sisters are all Michiganders. So it made for fun. And we're talking right now, I try not to set it up, but it's March Madness, and Ohio State and Michigan are arch rivals. And so it was a lot of fun growing up in that kind of a mixed household, let me tell you. But my dad was born and raised Pennsylvania Dutch, Amish, horse and buggy, but in Ohio. A lot of Stutzmans, that's my maiden name, in Ohio. And so he never served in the military. He went through 8th grade because that's as far as Amish kids do. My mom had gone through high school up in Ohio, in Michigan, but nobody in her family either had ever been to college. So as I was getting ready to graduate high school, I had good grades. I wanted to do something in the medical field. I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Now I did, as you said, I ended up being a registered nurse, and that was really because I had no freaking idea it took 8 years to become a doctor. Had I known that, I would have, especially after I started trying to go to college on my own, no student loans, I didn't know there were scholarships. We didn't know anything about how to go to college other than it's down the road. There's a community college. This is what it costs for tuition. And you got to buy a book. And why are books for school like $200 for one book? And then you can sell it back for $20 after you just spent a couple hundred on it. It's crazy. It's a racket. And I need in on that one, to be honest with you. And so after about 2 years of going to community college, very part-time with 2 part-time jobs, I thought there's got to be a better way. So I went into a recruiting office, and nobody in my family that I knew of had served in the military. Went to the recruiter. They were going to offer me college money, a sign-on bonus, and the opportunity to go out to Defense Language Institute at Monterey, California for almost a year to learn German, the language my dad spoke and his 9 siblings all spoke, and they would sit around talking and laughing, and we knew not what they were talking about. So now I could go learn that language and they were going to pay me. I'm like, I'm in. I thought I'll do my 4 years, I'll get out and go back to school. And it didn't quite work that way.
It's a familiar story for sure. So I have to say 8 kids is a bit of an eye-opener. So can you give me, what are the roses and thorns of having a large family, especially in light of being a member of the military?
Yeah, in full disclosure, 2 of them are my biological sons. My first marriage, we were married for over 20 years. We met at Defense Language Institute, Monterey, California.
Nice.
And ended up being assigned to Germany soon thereafter. And that's where my 2 biological sons, Joe and Jeremy, were born. They both have since served in the military. They both did over 20 years. Okay,
oh, great.
I can't believe that this is all happening. Along the way, divorce happened, and I met another military guy, got married. From his first marriage, he had 6 kids.
Wow.
So all of them were minors at the time we got married. His first wife is amazing, Mom. Amazing. She homeschooled all of them, and that was what they had agreed to do. So just a lot of fun. We had them every other weekend at the house. We had them a lot on the summer times. And even as they graduated college, one of them, when we were stationed down in Tampa, one of them went to Clearwater, a university right there in our neck of the woods. So we saw Rachel all the time. But all of those grandbabies, I have from my kids, biological kids, 5 grandchildren. But then I have 11 more from the other 6.
Oh,
So we're
wow.
waiting. One of my stepkids, Jesse, if you're listening to this, I'm still waiting. There's no grandbaby there. I want one from every one of you guys. And so far, everybody's done a good job except Jesse. And he's 30 now. So it's time. Let's do something.
I was thinking about your kids and guessing at their age range. And Missy and I are in the era of our life where we have young adults. So I think your oldest Missy is 26, 25.
Oh, she's doing math in her head right now, folks.
Yeah, he's 26 or 27.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you on that.
Yep. And she has a middle son, and then her youngest is a freshman in college, and then I have a 26-year-old and a 23-year-old. So I thought this was a perfect opportunity to ask you, what is your best advice for parenting new adults? Because they still need you a little bit, but obviously you don't want to be overbearing. So do you have any tips and tricks?
Yeah, I grew up in a generation that I couldn't wait to get away from home because I grew up in a very strict household. I couldn't wait to get out. As soon as I graduated high school, that summer I was gone. And I lived with a couple of girlfriends. We rented an apartment. We're broke as broke could be. I'd go home you show up at dinner time once or twice a week, but I never, it was like mooching without mooching. It's like, hey, why don't you have dinner with us? I need to get going. No, stay. Oh, okay, I'll have dinner. And I like pigged out because I was eating breakfast cereal for breakfast and breakfast cereal for supper. Well, I was trying to go to that community college and work 2 part-time jobs and still go out and be a young adult. But now I will tell you, my sons in particular, as they were becoming young adults and thinking they were all that, they were all grown up, but they didn't want to listen. They were still living at home. They didn't want to help with anything, but they also weren't going to college. So I said, you're either going to have a job or you're going to be in school. And I don't mind if you're in school, if you have a part-time job, that's fine. Because I did it the whole time I was in school, and I did fine on grades. And I think it taught me a lot. Plus, I self-paid. I was offering to use my GI Bill for them to go to school. We're going to do something. And that they didn't want to. And my tough loved one of them at 20 years of age. He came home after multiple warnings. And I'm not the mom that counts to 3 by going 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 7/8. I mean it. No, I go 1, 2, 3. And so he'd blown his last chance, and he came home to find all of his stuff sitting out on the front porch, and he was shocked. So his friends and other people that knew him let me know what a horrible mother I was. But I can tell you what, he's now in his 40s and he is doing just fine. Proud dad, great jobs. He's a government civilian, continued his work, did active duty, but the boy could not jump out of airplanes without getting hurt. So he finally left active duty, stayed in the Army Reserve, became a GS government civilian, doing great things down at Fort Bragg. But I think sometimes the idea that when I hear somebody at 25 and 30 years old still living at home and not paying any kind of rent, not contributing to the household, not necessarily going to school, I always thought my job is to make every one of my children the most productive adult in the United States. That's my job. Not to keep them to be my child for life. They'll always be my children. And you know what I mean with that.
Yeah. Of course.
But my job is to raise them to be productive adults. And sometimes that's a swift kick in the backside.
Yep. And their timing is their own, unfortunately. So sometimes you have to be patient.
Yeah, my parents were never that way. 18, we've raised you, you're on your own. And no, I never they were fine to have stayed home, but when they kept being really incredibly disrespectful, and that's just one thing that I couldn't tolerate. And so finally, there was no dad in the house, and they thought they were all that in a bag of chips. Is, you know what? Maybe you need to go see what it's like to really try to struggle and be an adult, not just complain because mom is tired of seeing 2 pizza boxes kicked under your bed. And
Yeah, exactly.
you weren't supposed to be eating in their rooms. I just bought that house. It was new carpeting. That hours of pizza boxes make me, I'm like the drill sergeant, I suppose. I don't know. But it is hard. And the generations have changed. Technology has changed. And I think everybody's got to, and every one of our children are so different. So what works for one, even in the same household, will not work for others. The way I went in the military, I have 4 siblings. None of them went in the military. I can't imagine what it would have been like for them.
Clearly, you're a driven and energetic woman. Where does that come from, do you think?
We worked hard as a family. My dad was a roofer. That was the trade of my Stutzman family. I have a brother that's still a roofer. My dad and his 5 brothers, my grandfather and all of his brothers. It just forever. And in the winters up north, it didn't mean that he was able to make a living. So we always had a big garden. We always raised animals and butchered them every fall. And Dad might take a couple extra deer to make sure we had food on the table. We were never without food, but there were times that it might just be freshly baked bread with a jar of strawberry preserves and some good butter. And that would be supper. And that was fine. Because warm bread and butter and fresh jam, oh yes, happy.
Yeah.
Like we get to eat as many slices of this as we want. Okay. And we never thought of it as the only reason we got that was because there was nothing else to feed us that night. But I never realized until in hindsight, my one sister told me that I was 12 years old before I got my first article of clothing that was mine. I have 2 older sisters. I'd never gotten a new piece of clothing until I was about 12 years old. And it never dawned on me that was the case. But we worked hard. We had eggs, we raised chickens, and we butchered chickens. We raised goats, and we butchered the young, but we used the goat milk because I had a brother that was allergic to cow's milk. So we had our own goats. You always had something to do. Even to this day, and I love to read, but sitting and reading is a challenge for me because I feel guilty trying to enjoy a good book, even when it's one on a topic that I adore, like military women. I think for my job, I need to be as well versed in this, given where I work. But my mind starts wandering, isn't there something else you should be doing? Is there laundry that needs to go in? I hate that feeling, but sometimes I can power through it. Maybe a glass of wine will help me do that. And I can stick with the book. But other times I just get up and start doing something else.
Are there days when you get tired?
I think there's always days when we get tired, but I have an entire team relying on me. This is a nonprofit foundation. We don't get federal funding. And so to make payroll, to keep the lights on, and at a national memorial, it costs over $20,000 a month for the electricity bill.
Oh,
so
wow.
I can't afford to be tired even when I am tired. People are relying on me for their paychecks, people that come to visit this beautiful memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. I would hate for them, even though we do have a glass ceiling. So if it's daylight, the light can be shining through, but there's something about having the power on and the stories on the video screens for people to enjoy. So it is what it is. I can't afford to be tired at this point. Although either our mornings, I'm thinking, 5 more minutes.
Yeah. Is there anything that you have yet to accomplish that you want to accomplish?
I would love to go into space.
Oh,
I just want
cool.
like 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Blue Origin or somebody, SpaceX, send me. I'm ready to go. I've gotten to jump out of good airplanes. I'd love to actually stay in one and feel that weightlessness of what that is like. There are other things, but definitely every time I watch something like that, and like William Shatner, who did a shout out for the Military Women's Memorial a couple of years ago, compliments of Robin Johnson, who knew and got a hold of him. And
Of course. Robin would know William Shatner.
Yeah.
He knows everybody. And so I'm pleased to be in her sphere of influence. But yes, and so when he in his 90s got to go up, I'm like, I'm only in my 60s. Let me go. I'm good to go. So maybe I have to wait till I'm in my 90s and I'll still be ready to go. Just put me in, coach. I'd love to.
Yeah.
I want to know what that feels like. People say it's almost like a religious experience kind of, but I want to that calm, that peace, that quiet, that solitude. I would love to.
I just think it'd be really cool to see Earth from space.
Yes. And you see it on the television or whatever. I love the movie Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks. But the idea of that, or Susan Helms, who's a retired Air Force 3-star, she's an astronaut. And I got to interview her. And I asked her about it. And it turns out she thinks very possibly she may have been the last person, because she flew in 2001, to take a picture of the Twin Towers in New York City before they were struck and dropped.
Oh, wow.
From space, the last photo from space of the Twin Towers.
Oh, my.
And I asked her, where were you then on 9/11? And here we are coming up on the 25th anniversary. And she said she had come back to Earth and she was in a swimming pool in Houston rebuilding her muscle strength. They did a lot of swimming because she said, you can't even hardly lift your hand when you get out of after you've been in space for a period of time. So she was in the pool, and when she came out is when she was told about that. And she was just like blown away. And like the rest of us in that era, we sat glued to the TV waiting to hear more about what was happening. And I was doing service in my reserve unit because I had left active duty, but stayed in the Army Reserve and did a total of 37 years of all this craziness. But in 9/11, I was still obviously with the military intelligence community, and my unit was up at Fort Meade, Maryland, not far from Washington, D.C. So our very first time that we came up after 9/11, my group, we went and drove down where we could stand up on a hilltop and just stare at that gaping hole in the Pentagon.
Yeah.
It's like goosebumps and choked up, tight throat and tears. You're angry, you're hurt, and as a military intelligence person, it's like, how did we miss this? What did we not see? All of these kind of things, feeling a sense of guilt for what did, but they only have to be right one time. We have to try to be right every stinking time. Thousands and thousands of possible attacks that are thwarted.
Yeah,
Don't hit the news, just those that do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did read an interesting bit about you. I think it was on your Wikipedia page. I don't have a Wikipedia page.
Do I have a Wikipedia page?
You do?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I better go check it and see if it's...
You should see if it's accurate. This may not be accurate. You never know. But a fascinating story. And I instantly was like, oh, like she's going to quickly be my idol. There's a story about you had been asked to be the president of the memorial and you turned him down or was like, yeah, well, let me think about it. And then you had an encounter in a parking lot. Would you care to share more of that? Because I think I just love this story.
Let me tell you, how many women veterans tell me, yep, same thing happened to me too. So I already knew about this Military Women's Memorial, and I knew that more than 3 million of us had served all the way back for 250 years. We've been doing this stuff. And yes, I was working in the Pentagon as a contractor. I had just retired from the Army, fat, dumb, and happy, writing white papers, just sitting there and thinking big thoughts about things that might happen 20 years from now. Who could test you on that? Nobody. So I'm writing these kind of papers. They're paying me handsomely to do this. And really nobody was challenging me. I came in, and as a contractor, you can only work 40 hours. Now I probably work 80 or 100 hours and I don't get paid extra for it. But especially in a classified environment, you can't come in and work by yourself as a contractor. Is amazing opportunity. And I was happy with it. And they were doing the national search for the next president of the Military Women's Memorial. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure I'm the right fit because it is a lot of fundraising. And I'm a retired Army warrant officer. So when you get a letter signed by CW5 Phyllis Wilson, a lot of people go, I don't even know what a CW5 is. And we like it that way. But if it's signed by Admiral or General so-and-so, you don't have to know, but wow, she's a general, she's an admiral. It sounds pretty damn cool. And I thought, sometimes I think people give just because of the level of the individual.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm probably not the right person for you, simply because a lot of people don't even know what that is. And as fate would have it, to your point, I was running late. I was still working at the Pentagon. And I normally park out because I always wear a Fitbit or some kind of something that measures my steps. But it was a little dreary that day, a little drizzly, and I parked close by. And as I was looking for a close spot, I saw a sign that said parking for veterans only. Okay, boom. I swung in, I parked, and I hop out. And as soon as I get out and close the door, this guy in the parking lot goes, "Excuse me, that's veteran parking."
Ooh.
And before I could say, "Yes, sir," like I wanted to be a smart aleck and like, "I can read, thank you."
Yeah.
But no, I was just going to, "Yes, sir, thanks." And before it could even get anything else, he follows up with, "Is your husband with you?" And I said, "Sir, not for nothing. I served for a long time in the Army." "How long did you serve?" And I said, 37 years. And he threw the red flag out there and goes, "No, now I know you're lying. Have you heard of stolen valor? Because you can't serve more than 30 years. And
oh my gosh.
Okay, he knows a little bit about the military. He just doesn't know everything about it. So we got to talking a little bit. Turns out we were both at Fort Bragg at the same time. Both had jumped out of perfectly good airplanes in the same years. I end up thanking him for his service and tell him I need to get inside. He does not thank me for my service. Not that I needed him to. I just thought, that's kind of rude. But as I went inside, I got to thinking, if I had been a man that had never served but had the audacity to park there, how would he have said anything? And my gut told me no. Because unless you're wearing the baseball cap, the T-shirt, you got something plastered on the back end of your car, who would know that you're a veteran? And too often, even when women veterans wear the cap, wear the shirt, whatever, or have something even on their license plates, "Oh, thank you. Tell your husband thanks for his service." And it happens far too many times.
It does.
So I got back in, got my few things, get back in the vehicle, and I thought, there are over 3 million of us that have served. How many more does it have to take until it's okay? And I mean, it didn't bother me as me. Please, I've had far worse happen.
Yeah.
But it just was at that, it struck a chord that here it is, we're looking for the next president of the National Military Women's Memorial, where our job is to honor and tell the stories of America's service women. And this dude was just really ungracious. And I'll thank him for the rest of my life for challenging me, because had he not, I would probably still be working in the Pentagon, writing white papers, fat, dumb, and happy. But I have learned so much. I've been there like 6.5 years now at the Women's Memorial. And the stories I've learned about women in the military that I never once heard in all those years, decades, serving.
Yeah.
If we don't know, and we're women that are serving or have served, if we don't know these stories, why should America know them? I'm on a massive mission to make sure America knows what these women have done, what they are doing, in a way, measure to inspire young men and women to consider the military as an opportunity, whether it's for a chapter or for an entire career. It doesn't matter. I think serving in the military just helps to formulate who you are. And so I'm grateful, very grateful to the gentleman. And I wish I had gotten his name, but at that exact moment, I was not ready to hear his name, I don't think. So if you ever hears one of these, please get in touch with us at and say, I was that guy.
Yeah. And we'd like to have a further conversation about
And I'd
that.
like to, again, thank him tremendously, because that's what galvanized me. That night, and I came home from the Pentagon, I went to my computer. I had run my own nonprofit called Wounded Warriors Have Families Too, because too often we take care of the wounded, injured, or ill serviceman or woman, and we forget when we all deployed out, the families left behind. And now we do all these events. We take people elk hunting, deep sea fishing, all this as an individual to form back up with some more military men and women. And now the family's still left. So when the washing machine breaks or the car dies or whatever, Great. I'm glad you had a great time, honey, out there elk hunting for the last 7 days. We think that happened at home, reminiscent of when you deploy or you go out to a training exercise or you go to a school in the military and we're left here. So my charity was meant to bring them together for very physically strenuous events like the Bataan Memorial Death March out at White Sands. But as a family, they would go the distance. And we had a team around them because when it gets really hard, that's when people start butting heads. But at the end, when they finish together, the hugs, the tears, the we got to do this again is just so inspiring. But you got to be there to separate them at like mile 14, 15, 16, and back together at mile 26.
I just had a friend that did that. So it's 26 miles long.
There's a 14-mile distance, and then there's it's like the distance of a marathon. But with the real Bataan Death March, it was over 60 to 70 miles.
Oh, wow.
They were not provided food or anything during that. They were already half starved. And many people along that route were bayoneted. They weren't going to waste, the Japanese were going to waste a bullet on them. So the Bataan Memorial Death March is 26 miles, one day, deep sand, cheeseburger at the midpoint. There's a cheeseburger station. You got to pay for it, but they're there waiting for you. And you know exactly what the distance is. You know that if you absolutely can't keep going, they've got these like ATVs, four-wheelers. They'll pick you up and bring you back. But I don't think anymore. I'd be curious to know, when I did it in 16, 17, and 18, there were still survivors of the real Bataan Death March.
Wow.
They came out and they did the first like 7, 8, 9 miles.
Incredible.
And these gentlemen were like in their 90s, getting close to 100 years of age. And we would sit and meet with them like the day before, and they'd have a talk and a Q&A session and share not only how they survived the Bataan Death March, but then being held as POWs sometimes for 3 years until they're finally rescued. The mental grit to get through something like that and to go on and have any semblance of what we call a normal life, we cannot do enough to thank them for their service and to make sure that they know America's not forgotten them.
Absolutely. I think you had another question, Missy. Am I putting you on the spot?
She's answered so many of them because a friend of mine yesterday, and she has no affiliation with the military, but I'm on this trip of all the things I never learned in like school. And a lot of it is from my rural upbringing in Indiana, which is heavy. We have a heavy history of Native Americans. And I'm from a town that was moved up on a ridge so that the Corps of Engineers could flood it. They could build a reservoir or dam and they could flood it. And there's just some things that have come out recently. And it's like, where was I? I was probably asleep in school, or I was talking to someone when the teacher was talking about some of these things. But she had brought up the story about, and you can correct me because I may butcher this, Linda Van Devanter, who was a nurse in Vietnam. And basically her book is what inspired the TV series China Beach. And so she had shared that. And again, I was like, how come I didn't learn these things in school? And so I think the point that I have is, or that I want to ask you, and you've touched on it, you've talked about it, is why it's so important that we tell these stories and that people are aware. And you alluded to it in your parking lot experience, but just tell us more about like why it's important and what more we can do. And I know we have a long ways to go.
We really do. When we opened the memorial in 1997, so it will be 29 years old this October. But in 1997, one of the speakers at opening day was 101 years old, and she had served in World War I.
Wow.
World War I. And so when she spoke, she said, when I served in the Navy, women were not even allowed to vote because we weren't given that right until 1920. And the argument is, while women had marched as suffragettes for 40 plus years for the right to vote, the argument that they were told was, you're not a full citizen because you don't defend this country. Therefore, you don't deserve the right to vote. But it was against the law for women to defend the country, which therefore made it, they weren't full citizens, therefore they couldn't vote. But through a loophole in the Navy Reserve regulations, which was created in 1916, so in 1917, 1918, they're trying to figure out how can we get some women into the Navy. A woman was reading through a secretary was reading through all the Naval Reserve policy and rules that were new. And she told the Secretary of the Navy, hey, sir, it says here you have to be a citizen. It doesn't say you have to be a man. Everything else for you to join the military said you must be a man and a U.S. citizen. This only said a U.S. citizen. So the Secretary of the Navy thought about it for a little bit, and he said, bring them in. Over 10,000 women, they lined up down the street at recruiting stations to raise that right hand and to join before they were allowed to vote, but they could join. And we argue that part of the reason that they finally granted women and signed that 19th Amendment into law was because women now were marching at the end of the war in these victory parades in their uniforms. And so now you can't say we're not full citizens. Here we are. Yeah. We did our job, even to the point we went overseas and did these kinds of things. But we have so much work to do. I love learning about American history. So what if it's told through the lens of a female as opposed to a male? If I learn about George Custer, or you pick the human being, it doesn't matter. But it never dawned on me. I remember as a small child seeing film on the evening news when Walter Cronkite was still a thing, of what was happening in Vietnam. And they have body counts. And I was 7, 8, 9 years old. Peripherally, I knew there was some war going on somewhere. It never dawned on me there might be women over there. Simply, I didn't know until not that many years ago that on the long black wall, the Vietnam Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C., there are 8 women's names. All 8 are nurses that were killed in Vietnam doing their job. So again, when we talk about women in combat or combat zones, it doesn't matter. There were nurses that died in World War I overseas, nurses that died in World War II, and other career fields. But now, just this month, we've had, with Operation Epic Fury, 3 military women have lost their lives in the Middle East.
Yes.
And I don't mean to minimize or marginalize what's happened with the men, because every one of those families, God bless you, I just can't fathom. Because when I went off to Iraq and Afghanistan, I was fine. But when my kids went off to Iraq and Afghanistan, I wasn't. And I was proud of them for serving their country. But as it would get closer and closer to the end of their time over there, I just knew too many amazing people that they lost somebody they cared so deeply for just before they were supposed to return back home to the state. And I'm like, no, that's when the nightmares hit and everything.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just, we're there. We're give us the opportunities. We will prove we're capable. We're able to do this. We want to do this. And in some cases, like in World War I, the switchboard operators, the Hello Girls, they were far better at their task than men, because God bless them, guys like to work on one thing, put a lid on that box, and move to the next one. We multitask. Like we were saying earlier, I may be in the midst of fixing supper. Oh, are there clothes in the dryer? What are we going to do for lunch tomorrow? All these things. Do I have enough gas in the car? Should I put gas in the car today? All these things that you're thinking all at once. And so what was taking men nearly a minute to make the old plug in on a big switchboard, the connections, it took them nearly a minute. Women were doing it in about 7 seconds.
Wow.
And that's saving lives. When the front lines are calling in and saying, hey, we've got problems here, and the headquarters got to make decisions on what to do, that can save lives. There are things that we can do that I think we can do better than most men. Not all. Let's be clear. But there are those kind of things. And I just think we have such a great opportunity where we're going. But again, these stories that I never heard of, or the women's names there, like Sharon Lane, one of those nurses. And if you've not yet read, folks, the book called The Women by Kristen Hanna.
I was going to bring it up. It's fantastic.
You really should. Another great book is by Lena Andrews called Valiant Women, World War II Women. And Lena was a CIA analyst. She did all kinds of research, and we stole from her we asked how she learned about one of the women that she turned into a chapter in her book. She said, well, she was doing the research. She was reading about this particular guy, but she was reading all of the footnotes, and down in a footnote, it discussed this woman. So she used the footnote to learn, and she's like, you wouldn't believe this incredible woman. And the only way I ever found out was she was a footnote. And so we say, we are not a footnote. We are not a footnote. We use that even as a hashtag. We are not a footnote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking about nurses in Vietnam, the book, The Women, immediately came to mind because it was really fantastic.
Yes, somebody's bought that as supposedly it's going to be turned into a film here shortly.
Very cool.
It'll make a great film.
And what I thought it did such a great job is that just when they came home from Vietnam, they weren't recognized as veterans, not just by the public at large, but like the Veterans Administration and the U.S. government were not recognizing them as veterans. Setting aside like the combat experience, like just didn't even recognize them as being a military veteran.
Yeah. That's happened a great deal, sadly. The Hello Girls of World War I, they came home and they fought from the end of World War I until 1977 when they got veteran status. The women Air Force service pilots, 38 of whom died doing their job, were not veterans at the end of World War II. Took that same law in 1977 to give them veteran status. That's just crazy. None of our men ever had that kind of a challenge. And I'm not male bashing, don't misunderstand me. Men have always been required to defend this country. We've had to fight like hell just to be allowed to serve in whatever capacity they would let us in, and be grateful for it. Like Frida Hardin, that World War I yeomanette, that I wasn't even allowed to vote when I joined the Navy. But through her hard work and so many others, the changes that we've seen over really 100 years is really pretty fantastic.
Yep. Yeah. But still so much more work to do.
Yes. I think it will never end. It's not like everybody's saying, oh, you need to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But there's still this challenge of, and I always taught, to be fair, I taught my sons to hold my door, to open my car door and say ma'am to me, not because I was a military officer, but because I served and ma'amed my parents. And I just, that was it. It just is what it is. And I think that there's a challenge for the way I see my sons care for their wives and their children. Makes me very proud. And there is something about a protective and provider thing for our guys. Our men should be able to do that. Not everybody agrees with me even on that point. And I'm like, okay, we'll agree to disagree. I can provide for myself. I'm divorced. I'm not married now, and I'm doing just fine. Thank you. But I don't mind when anybody, especially a younger man, opens a door for me. I say, I forgot what a gentleman looked like. Because so often we've beaten men into submission in that I can get my own door. Okay. So can I. But I think that if somebody's going to be sweet enough, man or woman, to hold a door for me, I'm going to be kind enough to say, thank you. That was nice. Gratitude goes a long way. And I just think we've beaten up men for so long, and I have 5 sons, and I'm like, no, I'm not beaten up on them. I'm proud of all of them, of what they've done with their lives and how they're just really good human beings. And let's stop making them feel like, I know I still watch commercials on TV, and I feel like, why are we trying to make all men look stupid? If you watch commercials now, it's the guys that are the goofballs in the commercials. They wouldn't dare do that to a woman. We wouldn't put up with that.
No. Agree. Missy's raising 3 of our own sons, and we've talked about it in the past as like how to help your children navigate today's expectations with our desire to make sure they're polite and they're a net positive on the world and they're sensitive to other people, but still their own person. And it's a lot to navigate.
It is. And God bless you. Yeah. Now I've got the grandkids that we're doing the same thing. I try most summers to spend a 7 to 10 day time with and get as many of them together as possible because I want them as cousins to know each other. We're all spread out. We're all so busy. It used to be we all got packed up around Christmas time when we went and visited the grandparents. And now it's okay, I'll rent the Airbnb big old cabin or cottage or something. Come on. And then it gives all of the parents, you guys can do whatever you want. You are not needed here. We are fine. We will manage. We're going to have a lot of fun. And it's more about me I love snuggling and cuddling with the little ones. But just having them get to know each other. Yeah. Because I want to make sure that they're connected even as adults.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Why don't we dive into the pre-planned questions so that we're respectful of your time? Yeah. And I'll kick off with the first one. Do you have a quote, Bible verse, or mantra that you live by? It could be a few words or a bunch of words, but something that's your guiding light.
I have a couple of those and I really struggle, but I think for me, the one that I have used the most with everybody is people will always meet your expectations. They just have to know what you expect.
Ooh, that's great.
Because too often we think intuitively, whether it's a spouse, a coworker, or whatever the case may be, they should just know. They should just know that that's what I expect of them. No, just presuppose that they don't. Yeah. and be kind enough in the way in which you share what your expectations are. If with my colleagues, my coworkers, what do I expect? Certainly great customer service. Anybody that comes inside that Military Women's Memorial is greeted. Anything that they ask for within reason is going to be accomplished. There's people sometimes that come in, we didn't even have snacks at one time. And then somebody came in and they're diabetic and they didn't realize how long you could be at Arlington National Cemetery and talk about a food desert. Yes, it is. And it just hadn't packed. And we went back to our own little storehouse and got some granola bars and did that. But now we stock some stuff in the gift shop so people can do those kind of things. And we learn along the way what it takes to be compassionate, to be kind, to be thoughtful. It is the Military Women's Memorial. We want people to come and see this, that there is that physically fit, tough side to being a military woman, but there's also the compassionate side because there's a nurturing thing within many of us that just tell us what you need. We're here to help. Yeah. We're there. And sometimes I forget, I'll get there and I'm there all day and I didn't think to bring some food. We're stuck. So when we do events, especially where we have a lot of our volunteers and or staff there, we'll order in some kind of sub sandwiches or something. So there's always food to be had back there in the kitchen. Enjoy.
I think that is just a woman versus man. And again, not bashing men, but I told my husband, I said, am I the only one that wakes up and wonders what we're having for dinner as soon as I wake up? And then you're like, oh, people are coming over. What are we going to feed? Or we're going on vacation. Should we take snacks? Or I'm always thinking about food. It may just be a me thing. I don't know.
No, I do the same thing, especially now, like I said, my mom is living with me. And so making sure that even when I'm gone for the day or a couple of days, I just got back on a short business trip and making sure she was stocked up and things that, because she don't like to cook anymore. At 86, I'm not going to do it either.
No.
If it can't be microwaved or just get it out of the fridge like a good bowl of homemade macaroni salad or something, probably not going to do it. Yeah. So it's that planning part. And I think that's why as military planners, I think that we just have a strong suit because we think about contingencies and what ifs.
Yes.
In a way that you ask a guy, what do you want for dinner? I don't care. I just ate. I'm not hungry. Yeah. I didn't ask you if you were hungry. I asked you, what do you want to eat tonight? Because we have to think about it because you got to have all the stuff or just order pizza or whatever it's going to be. Just tell me if you have a preference. But even now my mom does it. It used to make her crazy because she'd ask Dad, what do you want for dinner? And he's, I don't know, whatever. And now she does the same thing to me. And it used to make her wild. Why can't he just tell me? I'm like, all right, Mom, why can't you just tell me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And most of the time, they don't care. And that's the great thing.
Yeah. So I'll just fix what I want and hope you like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Our second question is, what is a song or a musician you put on blast while having a bad day, or a song that brightens your day?
I challenged on this one, but when I took the reins here as the president, our board chair, who's Major General Jan Edmonds, who just badass all the way, it just scares me a little bit. And she's so tiny, but she always says she is firm but fair. And that absolutely denotes who she is. She is an amazing leader. And she was the one that really talked me into the job.
Yeah.
And the day that we were doing an official ceremony to hand over the reins, I don't know why, but she had picked a walk-on song for me. And so to this day, whenever we have big events, somebody will play this song, and it's "This Girl Is on Fire."
Oh, cool. That's a great song.
Yes. And so whenever I'm like, I can't do this anymore, God, let me win the lottery. Let me fund this place. So we're not just chasing our tail every day just to raise a buck. And so then there we go. I just have to go find that song. This Girl Is on Fire, and crank it. And sometimes at big events, everybody just floods the dance floor. We all, because it's like our anthem. It's a great way for us to all come together and go, you know what? And we're pointing at each other. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. And it's an uplifting song.
Very cool.
Now I'm never going to be able to hear that song and not think of you, Phyllis.
All right. Alicia Keys can give me some of the royalties from that song.
She does. She does.
Yeah.
Maybe we could invite her to sing it live sometime for you.
I wish you would. I wish you would.
Yeah.
I don't have any. We'll ask Robin. Maybe she knows.
Alicia. Get William Shatner. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. That's true.
It's like 6 degrees of separation in Hollywood. So I'm sure. Elizabeth.
What is a food or smell that invokes a good memory?
Freshly baked bread. I told you about that earlier. My mom baked all of our bread. And at one point when the weather was such that he just could not make enough money to cover costs, including some things we could make it through on certain foods, but you still have to keep electricity on, especially in the winter in Michigan or Ohio. And we're going to freeze us. Even though we had a Franklin fireplace, we had lots of wood stacked and we kept that fire going, but to keep the whole house and stuff going. But I remember Mom would bake typically once a week, 6 to 8 loaves of bread, because that's how many we would go through in a week.
Wow.
So 5 kids and my parents. But ultimately, at one point, I remember when I was still quite small, she would bake bread and take it to some local like country stores, and they would buy like a dozen or two to sell fresh bread. And so there was always a smell of bread in the house. And we would pick strawberries till the cows came home in the summer when they were in season. And she would make all these jars of jam. And there's just, even to this day, when I get a whiff of really good bread, I'm like, it just transports me back to these times when we were blissfully ignorant that we were poor, I guess you would say, because my parents always told us that if any of us thought we were going to go to college, we were going to have to find our own way. But of course, they didn't even know that extracurricular activities in high school were beneficial, that community service was better. They didn't know any of that because they had no idea, and there was nobody there to shepherd us. And so to see this next generation of our kiddos that are all college grads and so forth, big deal for us.
No.
Very cool.
And we know that when we were talking about you in a good way before today's recording, the one thing that Elizabeth and I talked about was, we know you're not just the Military Women's Memorial president. Like, you're multifaceted, you're talented, and I'm sure you're involved in a lot of other things. All of our listeners can give generously to the Women's Memorial. Is there another organization that you support that you would like our supporters to maybe support?
There is. It's a small little organization, and it's called Allied Forces Foundation.
Okay.
I met them in around 12, 14 years ago. And what we do, because I'm on their board now, because I get sucked into everything.
Yeah.
I can't say no. 8 kids, apparently I can't say no, huh?
Yeah.
So it works with our allies that served with us in Iraq and Afghanistan in particular. So think of Denmark, think of the Ukraine, think of all of them from across NATO. It's incredible. But our nation, the United States, when our men or women are combat wounded, especially catastrophically wounded, losing limbs and so forth, the quality of the prosthetics, the quality of the physical therapy, the surgeries, everything that they receive is absolutely world class. That is not true in many of our allied nations. Even getting a basic 100-year-old looking prosthetic, they're new, but it's not titanium. It's not a running prosthetic leg. It's not any of those kind of things. It's a leg so you can stand up. The benefits that they receive is we couldn't imagine. That's all they get. But it's as good as that nation is able to do. It's not that they're minimizing or marginalizing their more wounded. They are not. They just don't have that kind of financial capacity. So the Allied Forces Foundation takes combat wounded, injured, or ill to, in particular, this week-long events up in Scotland every June. And I went there three years in a row. And I'm telling you, your heart, it's like the Grinch that stole Christmas. Your heart will grow 3 times bigger.
Aww.
Just watching the change in the way these military men and women carry themselves, the way they're willing to laugh and joke with each other, the way we used to give each other a hard time in the military. And they went into their own shells. And somehow, some way, they end up with us for that week. They get to do really hard physical things like the Catamaran Yomp. If you want to go for gold, that's 54 miles in the Highlands of Scotland in 24 hours.
Wow.
I've never finished that because normally I ended up pairing up with somebody that was like, had lost both legs. And just to get them to bronze, which is almost the distance of a marathon, wicked terrain. Just to get them that far is huge, huge. But then we also get VIP tours of the Edinburgh Castle, special dinner with like VIP dignitaries in Scotland. It's just an incredible therapeutic week. But Allied Forces Foundation, they need $200,000 a year, and it's like pulling teeth to raise that money. We also now do the equivalent kind of an event here in the United States along the Appalachian Trail.
Very cool.
Wicked terrain, but we bring a lot more. There are Americans that go over to Scotland, but Ukrainians, and we've done, Allied Forces Foundation has done events in Kyiv, in the Ukraine, before this crazy, stupid war started.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to being able to go back there. But I think it's a way to pay it forward, to make sure that our allies, that through no fault of their own, and they answered their nation's call. We're just so incredibly fortunate. The amount of Department of Veterans Affairs services, for me, a military retirement check that they'd be blown away if they knew how much we were receiving. It's just really an important opportunity to thank these folks that served alongside of us, were wounded, others that died from their countries, and many people in the United States don't even know that maybe that service member from another nation that died means that your loved one came home.
Sure.
And I think that's really something that we really have to do a better job of being good global partners, that when they answer the call, they come because we've asked them to, that doggone it, we need to do the best we can to stand up for them. So I would say Allied Forces Foundation. You can find them easily.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Thank you for sharing that.
Our final question is, what friend do you have with an interesting story to share? Meaning, who should we interview next? And that's how we got connected to, we try and let it just happen organically. And so we got connected to you because Robin recommended you. So how would you pay it forward?
I would tell you, I think you should talk to Candy Martin. She's amazing. She's one of my best friends. She served in the Army for a very long time, like I did. She married a guy that also served for a long time but unfortunately they had daughters and one son. Tom went to West Point, the U.S. military academy up in New York. And unfortunately, as a young officer in Iraq, he died. 81 for this country. So those are Candy and Ed Martin, our Gold Star parents. And oddly enough, his fiance, Tom's fiance, was also in Iraq. She flew helicopters, medevac helicopters, and she heard the transmission. She knew it was his unit. And she was just worried that, and in fact, it was Tom that, and because she was listening to how long the helicopter was on the ground, apparently she also surmised quickly that what they were transporting was no longer somebody that would benefit from medical care. Because had he still been alive, they would have barely touched the ground and been right back up. But they stayed on the ground longer. And then she didn't know then, but once they let her know, then she insisted on going over to the hospital to see him. And they said, "You don't want to." And she's, "I do have to." And it's a shame. I know she has since ultimately, years later, finally married, and she's pregnant now with baby number 2.
Oh, nice.
The fiance that obviously never got to marry Tom, but Candy actually talked to this young lady and encouraged her and said, "You know what? You have to move on with your life. You're not losing us. We're always going to be involved." And Candy is called grandma to that. And it just surprised her last week or so when this young lady walked into the room visibly pregnant. Candy didn't know baby number 2 was on the way until that second. And so Candy was just inducted into the Army Women's Foundation Hall of Fame. She's all that in a bag of chips. She's very involved with the Daughters of the American Revolution. She is the national committee lead for everything the DAR does regarding veterans. Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
She's so busy doing things still. Yeah. But I cannot imagine losing your son like that.
No.
And she had just come back from being in Iraq. She'd only gotten home not too long before that.
Oh, so this is when she was still on active duty?
She was.
Wow. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So I just was at an event today at lunchtime with Gold Star mothers, and it's just, to have 4 children that went off to war and 4 that came home. Because I have such good friends that have lost a son or daughter in service to this country, I'm eternally grateful. And that sense of guilt. How come I was so lucky? Why did my kids all get to come home? And I'm so glad and fortunate that they did. Yeah. Candy would be she's got an incredible story.
Wow.
That is incredible.
I don't know. You made me feel like I didn't try hard enough in life and I didn't live up to my potential. But you are an inspiration. You really are. And obviously, it's never too late to get involved and do what you always wanted to do. And you're going to leave a great legacy for your grandkids. That was one of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about you. Your grandkids. Not to be dark, I work in funeral services, so I'm always thinking about, what kind of legacy do I want to leave on my family, my community, my kids? And you're going to leave a hell of a legacy. So it's an honor to.
Yeah,
you will.
They always say if you want something done, find a busy person. Stop asking me. Give me a break for a little bit, because it's such great causes. Like you said, with Allied Forces Foundation, like the Daughters of the American Revolution, safeguarding these stories, the genealogy, the history, the everything. And that's what all of these are about, is making sure that we're seen, that we're heard, that we are not feeling like we're marginalized. Because again, when we talk about the suicides and that sense of despair or loss, I don't want that to be something. Know that we're a place, and we're building out more community events to be held here at the Women's Memorial for people to find us as a hub, a place to come and be involved. So it's a great time to be alive, and it's a great time to look at what are we doing. But it's not lost on me either about building a legacy. what happens next, because the founder of this, General Vaught, is 96 years old.
Wow.
And without her, this place would probably have never come into life. And now it's on me to keep it going.
Yeah. She's amazing. She still comes to events, I think.
She did. Unfortunately, she now has severe enough dementia that you can't rely on her to not say something that, I'm ready now, let's go. And 2 minutes into something is, okay, I just want people to always remember her as the Grand Dame.
Absolutely.
Incredible woman. If you folks do not know who Brigadier General Wilma Vaught is, she got the Presidential Medal of Freedom just a couple of years ago at 92.
Yeah.
But she's been inducted into every kind of Hall of Fame you can imagine, highly decorated, and a force of nature.
She really is. She really is. About 23 years ago, another organization I'm part of, Academy Women, was trying to hold their first event. And I know she had a lot to do with providing space at the Women's Memorial for their very first event I think it was in 2003. Maybe something like that. And
then Academy Women got so big and outgrew the Women's Memorial. We couldn't contain you guys anymore, which is great. Just the idea that since 1980, with the first graduating classes out of the service academies till now, there are so many women that are Academy graduates that you need a big venue, which is great. And 50th anniversary of women walking in as brand new, I'm just going to say freshmen because it's different.
Yeah.
I get it. But 1976, 50 years ago this year, is when the first women were authorized to walk through those hallowed gates to begin as students at those service academies. It was a lawsuit that gave them that right. And so we have to push the envelope sometimes and be a little bit witchy. It may make people upset about us, but if like West Point's Army, it's been open since 1802. 1802. In 1976, they finally say, okay, women can go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a lot of fun to watch what's happening. There are some challenges, I won't lie, but
for sure.
But we are prepared. And I think there are so many of us that we're not going to stand on the sidelines and let something be.
Right.
You're not going to set us back. We're going to continue to move forward.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Come back when you write a book, okay?
Yeah, I have some time.
Yeah, you've got plenty of time with all your projects. But no, you should really write a book.
I want to. I really do. But I want it to be about these incredible untold stories.
Yeah.
The Paul Harvey of the day, back when. And now you know the rest of the story. Because I want to find these stories that most people have in their psyche somewhere.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. No, you haven't.
Yep.
Let me tell you the rest. The things that you never heard about. And so as I continue to unearth some of these, I make copies of that. And I have a special place where I'm holding all of these. It'll be a coffee table book where you get to sit there and look through some of these incredible women's stories.
Yeah.
Why didn't we know? But now we know.
And there's little girls out there that need to hear those stories. And
there's a lot to be said with if you see someone like you doing something, you can envision yourself doing that same thing.
If you can see it, you can be it. Yeah. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We've taken up a lot of your time and we don't want to disrespect that. We know you're a busy lady. Go have a glass of wine and unwind. And
I have to fix supper for me and Mama.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for your time. So appreciate it.
Thank you, Phyllis.
I appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Who did we talk to last? And we did not get to
Phyllis.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I left my tablet upstairs when we talked to her because not what I expected at all.
Phyllis seems personable and down to earth.
Totally. Because I was like, ooh, because I told Chris we were going to interview Phyllis. And he was like, wow. And I said, I know. But very personable and very passionate about what she does, which is admirable. Cannot be easy.
Well, and she said in passing once or twice that her mom, who has some health issues, was living with her. So she has this very busy, very public job. And so many of us has a parent or a family member that also needs your care and attention.
For sure. Yeah. But I have never been good at juggling everything. So my hat's off to all women out there who can juggle motherhood, being a good spouse, a job, hobbies, friends, whatever it is. It definitely takes, I don't know. Maybe I was born to have an assistant. When we were in Belgium and Chris was a squadron commander, my friend Christine, she was that. She'd be like, hey, just remember, we have this tomorrow. Or, hey, remember, like when you come, bring this. And she just kept me on task. And I was just like, if I was a rich person, I would have hired Christine to just follow me around in life. Make sure I didn't forget things and make sure I did what I was supposed to. And just, I've always been that kind of person that's a little flighty on remembering what I've promised people and where I should be. And
yeah, but that's because your heart is always open to help people.
My problem is and that's the thing with Phyllis, but like she has said yes a lot to a lot of different things. Sometimes all my yeses get me in trouble. Got too many yeses.
Exactly.
So, I'm so glad we got to talk to her. So much more about the Women's Monument.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a really cool, it's actually a very cool museum and a great location for promotions and retirements, but it doesn't have a big, huge light up neon sign on the outside. So there's so many times I know there are people that have probably driven past it a million times and don't realize what's inside the doors.
Because I've been to Arlington many times, and I gotta say, not until we lived there and we went to a promotion in one of those rooms, which are really cool. And it was great on a really hot summer day to be in there. And I was like, I had no idea this was back here. Yeah.
Yep. Find us at facebook.com/YSMMF podcast and Instagram at YSMMF podcast for episode announcements. Thanks.
Why don't we do this more often?
Exactly.
We should be doing this weekly if we were serious about it.
Yes, but the downside of having busy, interesting people as our subjects of our podcast is trying to pin down some time.